Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you start experiencing so many changes in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or that awakening around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere despite you not changing anything. So you go back to those tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet nothing seems to be working and the scale might actually start moving in the opposite direction. But we know now that your body is inherently different now that you've started experiencing these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to really help you understand how your body changes in this time of your life so you can reach your health and fitness goals, feel in control and at home in your body again, live a life full of vitality, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today I have one of our coaches, Coach Emma, here, and we are talking about all things maintenance. So what is maintenance? A little bit of background on that, how we find it, how do we improve our body composition, how do we stay there, all the questions, because people are always focused on their fat loss journey and how to get there. But then what happens once you actually get there? How do we maintain those results? Because a lot of us don't have issues losing the weight. We have issues maintaining the weight loss. So we're going to dive into all of those things today. And unfortunately, most women that we work with and chat with on a regular basis, they've been dieting for years, like years and years and years. And it's really unfortunate, but the reality is that our society really glorifies like the fat loss phase and trying to improve that, and then demonizes behaviors that don't really support that endeavor that much. Or if we're like chasing something or doing something that doesn't necessarily like work towards being the smallest version of us. And as humans, we're not meant to live in like a super low calorie state and being restricted for our entire lives, even though that seems to be like the way to keep it off. That's not correct. And it's not only unhealthy to do that, but it's also impossible because then you start having all these symptoms and you feel crappy and then weight gain comes on despite not changing anything. And we live in a world that is full of calorie-rich foods everywhere that we look. And somehow we're expected to really navigate this nutritional landscape that's like not really there to keep us small and keep us lean and aesthetically looking. And it can seem like a really impossible task. So we're going to dive into a whole bunch of things. And Emma's really going to take us start like from evolutionary perspective. Like we're going to go way back and explain things so all of this makes sense for you. So Emma, you can take it away.
All right. Thanks, Steph. So I really like to kind of look at this through an evolutionary perspective because I think it gives a lot of really valuable context and helps kind of paint a clearer picture of what we're dealing with here. So evolutionarily speaking, our bodies are hardwired to crave high calorie foods. Thousands of years ago, when humans were hunter-gatherers, opportunities to consume large quantities of foods were few and far between. So our ancestors often didn't know when they would get their next meal or what their next meal would even be. So our genetic predisposition to seek out and feast on these high-calorie foods was literally a method of self-preservation. Now, in our modern environment, we have the option to order extremely calorie-dense foods with just a couple taps on our smartphone. Like, I'm totally guilty of this, door dashing, desserts, and things like that. I'm sure we've all done it. But our biology really hasn't caught up to our modern environment. But like Steph was saying, we're expected to maintain lean physiques and to restrict ourselves in order to fit the mold of what society deems desirable. So it's kind of a constant struggle between our body and our mind. A really good example of this, I think, is the hunter-gatherer Hadza tribe of Tanzania, which kind of illustrates how humans lived before our modern society. So this tribe has kind of been untouched by like our modern society and offers a really good anthropological research opportunity. So kind of illustrating how our ancestors lived. And this tribe really tends to oscillate between periods of feast and famine. So in general, members of the tribe aren't really certain when their next meal will come or what the next meal will consist of. So they often engage in behaviors of like over consuming high calorie foods because they're not sure when they're going to get their next meal. So I think I was reading a study about them. And one of the excerpts of the study said that sometimes members of the tribe would drink like an entire pint of honey in one sitting because it was such a rare food for them. And they're like constantly living in a state of feast or famine. Many of our clients struggle with overconsumption of foods that they've labeled off limits. So things like donuts, candy, and other sweets generally fall into this no-go zone of foods. And typically these clients we see are really, really hard on themselves and blame themselves for lack of control around these foods. But we're here to tell you that it's really not your lack of willpower. It's literally your biology that drives you to engage in this type of behavior.
Yeah, and I think that's like super important to note because when we are like really hard on ourselves or like we can't control ourselves around food, like it is a part of our biology. And so our modern society that we're living in right now really doesn't match what our biology, like how it works. And we are constantly fighting with our internal drive for self preservation in a world full of temptation and comfort. So we're expected to follow extremely restrictive diets and do these insane exercise routines so we can fit into this nearly impossible mold of what like society really expects us to look like, which is honestly kind of crazy. And we're not meant to chronically diet and live in this state of constant deprivation. That's totally against our nature. It jeopardizes our health, both physically and mentally, hormonally, metabolically. Like, that's not how we're supposed to live. And so today we're really going to dig into like why you can't diet forever, how you can find your happy maintenance, which will allow you to live freely. And like that'll be a huge relief and you can embrace this thing called balance that we're always trying to achieve. And these strategies are really going to help you take some accountability of your health and will allow you to live a more balanced life full of vitality where you feel good. And that's like what we really want. So we're going to dive right into what is maintenance, Emma?
All right. So, technically speaking, maintenance is the state where your body really doesn't gain or lose weight. So, generally, we'll see very slight fluctuation, usually like 3 to 5 pounds, sometimes even more, just depending on hormones, how much water you had, sodium. We know all about that. Um, but in practice, maintenance is really a state of balance where you experience appropriate hunger signaling. So you're hungry for meals at meal times and don't ever experience periods of like extreme hunger or extreme fullness. We also tend to see balanced energy levels and mood levels, balanced hormones, and a general feeling of well-being. Like maintenance should be comfortable. Everyone's body is generally predisposed to have a certain level of body fat, which we call the body fat set point. Now, we can manipulate this set point to a certain extent, but in general, your body's always going to want to swing back to that set point. So it doesn't like to be, away from that set point in either direction. It doesn't like to be overweight or underweight to any degree. Our bodies really love homeostasis and they like to be comfortable. So we do have built-in protective mechanisms against weight loss and excessive weight gain. We call these our hunger and fullness cues. If left to our own devices, we can trust that our body will tell us when we're hungry and when we're full, which sounds pretty straightforward, right? Well, yes and no, because in our modern nutritional landscape, the foods we're exposed to can kind of disrupt or hack our innate hunger and fullness cues, which makes it really difficult for our bodies to know when they're actually in maintenance. So, for example, the ultra processed foods we're surrounded by in our modern environment tend to be very calorically dense but nutritionally sparse. So this means that foods can disrupt our natural hunger and fullness cues. So like an example that's commonly used is comparing a snack-sized bag of chips to like a whole potato. So you could probably eat like 3, 4 bags of chips and still feel hungry. But I really bet you could not eat 3 or 4 whole potatoes in one sitting. You'd feel extremely full. However, like the caveat is like, the snack-sized bag of chips has more calories than the baked potato itself. So the modern food we consume hacks our evolutionary system and kind of tricks us into thinking that we haven't eaten enough, even if we've blown way past our caloric goal for the day. So that's why it's important to really develop an awareness of what's in the food we eat so we can identify our true maintenance and make choices that are really going to support our overall health.
Yeah, and I think that that's like the whole intuitive eating thing. Like I've done a podcast on that in the past where it's like You can't trust your natural hunger cues anymore because the foods that we're eating are influencing it, the order that we eat our food in, if we're sleeping enough, our hormones. So it can be really hard to just like stay at maintenance when we're trying to just follow our natural hunger cues because there's totally skewed nowadays. Like we really can't trust it anymore, which is really unfortunate, but we need to learn like how all these things are going to impact things. So the next question is going to be, okay, so how can we find our maintenance? And the short answer is pay attention to what you're eating. The long answer is going to be a little more nuanced. So when we talk about maintenance, we're generally speaking about a calorie range. So our body wasn't meant to eat exactly to the point the same amount of food every single day. And I'm sure you've experienced days where you're hungrier or less hungry. And this is normal because of exercise or sleep or stress or all these things, right? So the easiest way to find your maintenance range is to weigh and track all your food for a period of days. And I know as soon as I say that, people are like, nope, I don't want to do that. Not happening. This is going to lead you to freedom, I promise. So like, just give yourself some time, play around with tracking. You're not aiming for any specific goals, just track how you're eating. So typically recommend 3 days, but you can even do it up to a week because your nutrition is going to look different on weekends versus weekdays, what your routine is, if your kid's going to activities after and you're swinging by somewhere, right? Like it's important to see those things and track everything, even the ice cream sundae or the margarita or whatever else you had, right? So it just gives you a true reading of like, where are you at and what is your body exposed to on a day-to-day basis? Once we have all that information, then we can take the average calories from that time period by adding up all the calories each day and then dividing it by the total number of days. You can even get more nuanced by calculating like your protein, your carbs, your fat, because again, like if you have more protein, you'll feel more full. If you have less protein, you'll be more hungry. So these are just things that if you have information, then you can do something with it because otherwise you're just guessing, throwing darts blindfolded in a dark room after being spun around and like hoping you hit the board is basically what's happening if we have none of this information. So the other thing too to pair this with is weighing yourself every morning and tracking while you're tracking your calories to see how your weight responds to different days. So this is where people like panic, like, oh, the scale went up 2 pounds. And it's like, okay, but was there more carbs? Was there more salt? Was there more fiber? Was there more or less protein? Did calories fluctuate? How was your sleep the day before? Like all of these things are going to tell us a lot, right? So we can see like we want to take our average weight over those days because again, that's going to tell us a lot. We can have fluctuations up to 5 pounds. So you can't be like, oh, I ate too much today because the scale went up. And it's like, well, no, there's water and stuff like that too, right? So we want to take our averages and see over time, over the course of a while, what is your weight doing? Is it staying within that like 5 pound range-ish? Is the averaging out pretty close to each other? Then you're probably at your maintenance. So let's assume that you have tracked your calories for 5 days and your weight went up 2 pounds. That's fine. That's really not bad. We're going to assume you're at your maintenance. It's just over time, we want to see those trends. This is why taking the averages and seeing that over time is so important. And then you can start deciding what to do. So do you want to increase muscle mass? Do you want to lose fat? Do you want to just stay at your maintenance and maintain? That's going to depend on where your calories are currently at. So let's say your average calorie intake over 5 days was about 1,600. This isn't a great place to start fat loss because you don't have room to go down and you're probably going to feel like crap. You don't want to go down to like 1,000 calories, 900 calories, right? For some people, you do have to dip pretty low, but like we want to avoid that as much as possible. And also that doesn't sound sustainable. Like that's not a good time. But the good news is that we can manipulate and boost your metabolism and get your maintenance calories back up. So there is a way to get your metabolism up, which means how many calories does my body burn at rest? How many calories can I eat? Because if we improve that, then you can eat more calories and maintain, which is really what you want. Your metabolism is not quote unquote broken. It's just maladapted. It's slowed down from hormones and past dieting history and the exercise and all the things that we always talk about. So you're not hooped. We can address this. So now, Emma, how, if someone's there and they realize they're eating too little, how do we go about increasing those maintenance calories if they're, oh my gosh, I'm maintaining and I'm only at 1,200 calories, I've been dieting for so long. How can we get those maintenance calories up so that their metabolism's working better?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask because I feel like a lot of clients coming in are in that position where they're like eating 1,200 calories, they're at maintenance, but the second they go up to 13 or 1,400 calories, the scale goes up. Which, sometimes it has to go up as the body kind of recovers. But the most strategic and straightforward way to boost or increase your maintenance calories is through a slow and steady reverse diet. So what this does is trains your body to expect a regular intake of food and to use that food to fuel your metabolism. When we're so low calorie for so long, our metabolisms really kind of down regulate because there's not enough food coming in. So our bodies kind of learn to expect less food and therefore they burn less food. So we've helped thousands of women improve their metabolisms by guiding them through reverse diets. And it's really never too late to improve your metabolism. That's the beautiful thing about this. Like any damage you've done can be reversed. We've worked with women who were eating like 800 calories per day, no joke, and we were able to increase their maintenance up to over 2,000 calories through a very slow and strategic reverse diet. Many times we work with women who eat very, very restrictive diets throughout the week, but kind of stop tracking on weekends. And that's why we work so hard to educate our clients on what's actually in their food because we know that calories can really add up if we're not paying attention. And I really like what you said earlier, Steph, about how tracking can really kind of set you free. And I know it sounds intimidating at first. A lot of people, get kind of scared when it comes to like, oh, I have to weigh my food. I have to weigh myself. I have to keep track of all these data points. But the good thing about that is you don't have to do it forever and it will give you some really good insights. So like you were saying, if the scale goes up 2 pounds one day, you can kind of look back to the prior day to see like, oh, I had more carbs or, oh, I had more salt. I had a meal out, that kind of thing. So it really kind of gives good context and helps us learn how our bodies respond to different things. So if you believe that your current maintenance calories are low, I really recommend reverse dieting. I know we talk about it all the time at Vitality, but I mean, it is kind of the secret. So we won't go into too much detail or further detail here about reverse dieting, but you can reach out, of course, with any questions to the coaches or Steph. We're always welcoming to anyone to ask questions. And we have tons of resources on social media about this topic too.
Yeah, we have so many things, you guys, on how to improve your metabolism and reverse diet properly and build up your muscle mass and all those things because this is important. This is how you do it. It does take time. It's not going to be a 30 pounds loss in 30 days thing. Like this is the slow, sustainable, the way you actually achieve changes and keep those changes, which is amazing. So let's say you've reached an appropriate maintenance. You reverse dieted. You're at that good level now where you actually feel good. So at maintenance, where it's like a good maintenance, because like you can maintain at 1,200 calories, but that's not a good maintenance because you probably feel like garbage. A good maintenance is where we feel good, we feel healthy, we have energy, we are, sleeping well, our digestion is good, we're not having that bloating, our hormonal symptoms are decreased. Like this is a good, appropriate maintenance versus where you were before. So once you get up to that level, what you do now is really up to you, which is really exciting. This is like the best part. So maintenance is a beautiful place to be because you can literally live here forever. It is fantastic. I love it so much. Yes, your weight might jump up and down occasionally when you're at maintenance. Like we said, there's typically like a 5 pound fluctuation up or down, depending on multitude of things, right? But it's also important to reiterate that maintenance is a range. So we don't expect you to have exactly like, let's say 2,000 calories every day. Sometimes you might be like, you'll be within like 100 and 200 calorie range. That's usually where people will maintain. So it'll be more like 2,000 to 2,200, for example. That's okay. Like you'll stay within that range. And one of the most amazing things about being at maintenance is that there is no pressure for perfection. You have so much room for flexibility. It is the most fun place to be. I'm going to be honest. Whereas you're in a fat loss phase, we need to be more spot on. We need to make sure we're hitting our protein. We need to make sure we're preserving muscle mass. There's less room for flexibility. It requires a lot more planning to make sure you're hitting your targets. Whereas in maintenance, you have so much more flexibility, like metabolism wise, where you can handle a fewer calories one day and a little bit higher the next. But that being said, like you do need to prioritize consistency. We don't want to see like 500 up and down. Like your body will not respond well to that and will hold on to fat or gain weight. So you do want to have some consistency in a smaller range, but you don't have to worry as much because you have more wiggle room, which is really exciting. You just want to make sure you're not getting into a situation where you end up eating way more or way less than you need. Otherwise, that's when we really start to run into issues. And this is where I see women that I chat with like, oh, I increased my calories. And it's like, whoa, like sometimes you're at 2,200, sometimes you're at 1,750. Like that's a really big range. So we still want to have consistency within a range, but because it's a higher calorie range, you have so much more wiggle room and you can enjoy foods that you actually really love.
Another really cool thing that I love about maintenance is the potential to experience body recomposition. So, this is essentially when your body loses fat and gains muscle at the same time. It's really kind of important to just make the disclaimer that it does take time to see this happen. Body recomposition is a very slow process, but it can be done at maintenance, and it's really cool when it happens. So body recomposition is most likely in individuals who have never trained properly or consistently before, or have taken a break from lifting and decided to return, or are coming out of very low calorie or restrictive diets. So as long as you're generally consistent with your calorie and protein intake in your training sessions, so we're prioritizing progressive overload and making sure that we're recovering between sessions, you will notice that your body composition will naturally tighten up over time at maintenance, which I think is so awesome.
And this is like when we're talking about body recomposition, we're talking about you're decreasing your body fat percentage. So you're seeing fat mass come down, but you're building muscle mass, right? So this does take longer, especially for women, perimenopause and menopause, hormonal changes. The people who will see results more quickly will be those people, like Emma said, that have really not trained before or consistently. It's just been very sporadic. Or if they've taken a very long break from exercise, or they've gone from like just doing cardio type boot camp stuff to actually like properly resistance training, or they're coming out of a very low calorie restrictive diet. Because you can imagine when your body goes from having no food to now having food to fuel, like your body is like, oh, this is what we've been waiting for. And then you're sending that signal to build the muscle and you can actually put it on. But you need to be, again, you have to be eating enough food. You need to be exercising properly. So you can't expect that just because you're at maintenance, you're going to start seeing changes. You need to make those active changes to see the results that you want.
Yeah, we see this all the time with clients. Like I'm sure you've received countless messages, Steph, and so have I, of clients who are saying like, "Oh, I haven't lost any weight, but like my clothes are fitting better." They're like, "What's wrong?" And we're always like, "What do you mean what's wrong? Like this is literally where you want to be. That's body recomposition." And like you said, like consistency is the biggest thing here.
Yeah, big time, big time, big time. Because I remember even when I was like in university and I was doing like workouts and it was just like, I'd kind of do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I remember the first time I followed my first structured program, it was 3 days a week, full body. And I was like taking the longer rest periods. I was like writing down my weight so that I would increase my strength week to week, or like the stimulus. And I was actually eating enough food. I was finally not just having a kiwi for breakfast. Like I was actually eating food. And in 6 weeks, it was insane. Like, mind you, obviously I was younger and like the first time like going into like a legitimate training program. But like my legs and butt blew up like nobody's business. Like it was crazy. But it's super exciting and it's a great place to be. And that was the first time I had personally experienced like, oh, wow, if I actually eat and work out like properly and eat enough, like it's crazy how much your body can change. I love it. Okay, so general benefits of maintenance, because like there are so many good things. And the first one is going to be health. Oh, health, you guys. Like we don't even realize how poor health we are until we start improving. We're like, I cannot believe that I thought I was good before. Like this is wild. Or I didn't realize how bad it actually was until I started feeling better. When we feed our bodies enough, we promote healthy function. Like our body does what it's supposed to do. It's insane. And not only at like the physiological level, but also the psychological level. Maintenance allows us to thrive. We don't have to worry about being hungry or obsessed with like eating as little food as possible and hitting it perfectly. Like you get this relief off your shoulders and you can think again. Like it feels so good. You can enjoy a treat with your family. Like it's the best feeling. The next one is energy and performance. This one's huge. This is like, even as we start increasing calories for women, this is one of the first things that improves every single time. When we're in maintenance, we are fueling our bodies enough for our training sessions and our daily activities, and we're not experiencing daily energy crashes, fatigue, low energy. We have the odd day here or there where energy might be lower, right? From like a poor night's sleep or some increased stress, whatever that looks like, but it's not a frequent thing anymore. Like it's very far and few between. And it allows us to also push harder in the gym. So this is something that we have a lot of women in our program right now that are going into their first deficit. And they're like, holy crap, the difference in the gym when I am not eating as much, like even if it's just like a drop of 300 calories, 400 calories, like it makes such a huge difference in what you're able to do in the gym. Like you feel tired, recovery takes longer. You feel like you aren't increasing your weights week to week and getting stronger like you used to. You really won't see as much progression in like your physique and exercise goals if you're not eating enough. So like this is something a lot of women have like recently been like, man, I didn't realize like I get it now. Like you talk about it, but now I get it. And I'm like, yes, because now you know what it feels like to actually have a good workout.
One of the other benefits I wanted to talk about was balanced hunger signaling. So like we were saying before, when you're at maintenance, you should be pretty comfortable. So a little bit of hunger here and there is totally normal. Everyone gets hungry, right? But you shouldn't experience extreme hunger. One of the cool things that I've noticed as a coach is that many of our clients report actually increased hunger cues after starting a reverse diet. Like I can't tell you how many times I've received a message of a client who's being like, oh my gosh, why am I so hungry? I'm eating more. Why am I so hungry? But this is actually a really good thing. This means that our hunger signaling is kind of coming back online after restrictive dieting. One of the most effective ways to regulate your hunger cues during maintenance is to actually prioritize whole unprocessed foods, because these types of foods don't hijack your system and make you crave more. They're more satiating and make you feel fuller for longer. And they're great for energy too. The next one is flexibility. We've talked about it before, but when you're in maintenance, it's much easier to be flexible with your food choices because our metabolisms are happy. So it's no problem to take on a few extra calories here and there. And this, like, I love maintenance for this specific reason, because it means like spontaneous dinners or lunches or, you know, just things that aren't in the plan for the day. There is room to go out to dinner with your spouse or your friends and, you know, or have a drink if you want it in moderation, whatever that might be. And then finally, the last benefit I wanted to talk about was your body will respond better if and when you decide to enter a fat loss phase. And I think this is really the most important one to address. Our bodies like to feel safe and balanced at all times. So if we put our bodies under chronic stress from constantly eating below our maintenance calories or like doing high intensity exercise, it will be much harder for us to have a successful fat loss phase. Staying at maintenance for an extended period of time allows us to send a signal to our bodies that our environment is safe and food is abundant. So this will naturally reduce your levels of physiological stress, meaning bringing down cortisol levels, and increase your body's sense of homeostasis or balance, which will make your body more responsive to a calorie deficit in the future.
Yeah, and I think this is like the really big thing for people to understand, because like even when I was in my hormones were trash in my 20s. They were not, I was not well from the stress and go all the time. And, you know, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'll be productive and having just a kiwi for breakfast and all those crazy things that we all did to ourselves. But like, it's crazy how much easier it was to look the way that I wanted once I figured this out. Like, because, you know, it wasn't super commonly talked about back then. Everyone was wanting to, like, you know, be the super skinny, like the 90s kind of vibe, right? With the tiny low-rise jeans and all those things. And it was just a terrible place. Terrible time. but like with that, it's like once I learned to eat properly and I put on that muscle mass, for me to lose weight was way easier. Like to lose fat mass and lean out was way easier. But it took a long time. And then I got into the place where like all the stress from my mom passing away and stuff like that, I had to reverse and eat at maintenance or a surplus for almost a year before I went into a deficit again. And I did that before our wedding. But I mean, I got to a place like I'm 5'5" and 145 pounds, and I was eating 2,200 calories a day to maintain, and like went to a deficit and was losing weight at 1,900 calories. Like it was great. But we try to rush into like this fat loss phase thing, and it's really hard if you're under muscled and you're not eating enough food. So like that needs to be a priority before you can go into fat loss for a lot of women. And especially if you haven't worked out in the past, like taking time to eat enough food and put on some muscle mass and then go into fat loss, it makes it so much easier, because otherwise we end up losing muscle mass and fat mass if we're not doing these things. And you'd still end up with a high body fat percentage or just a slightly smaller version of yourself. And people want to look fit and they want to look toned, but what they're doing doesn't match that. So this whole process of getting to maintenance, and then like once you get to your physique goals, you come up and bring your maintenance back up slowly again and maintain those results, and then you're good to go. And it's a really great place to be. So like Emma, how was your experience when you first like figured out this process? Because I know you were also like very like gotta eat super clean and do crazy amounts of exercise. So like what was your experience in like getting to maintenance and then like actually feeling healthy and then like staying there for a while? Like what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I definitely have a very interesting history with just like eating and under fueling and not realizing it and not realizing how bad I felt, honestly. And I can say like with confidence, I remember the specific time that things just started to click. Like I felt like my body was coming back online, and like I felt kind of like a well-oiled machine, honestly. And it didn't start for me, probably up until like 4 years ago when I got my first coach. And that coach really helped me prioritize peri-workout nutrition specifically, which was one of the things that I had not done before. So I was totally into the whole like intermittent fasting thing, fasted workouts, time restricted eating, just all that stuff, because I thought it was healthy. You know, like I had a professor in college who really kind of promoted the vegan diet and intermittent fasting, and I totally fell for that. And I was like, you know, working against my body. My body was literally shutting down. I had a host of issues, like my digestion was off. I was fatigued all the time. I would literally come home from work and lay on the couch and be like, why am I so tired? Meanwhile, I was probably eating like 800 calories at the time. But once I started eating more, and specifically more carbs, it was like a light bulb went off in my brain. Like it was amazing. And then of course my body started responding better too. Like I started actually growing muscle. So when I was doing my fasted workouts in college, I would never really progress. You know, I'd do all these high intensity workouts like literally every single day of the week. But I would never be able to go up in weight, and I'd never gain muscle. And I was wondering like, oh my gosh, I'm working out so much. I'm eating healthy. Why am I not looking any different? If anything, I looked, you know, puffier than I was before. So once I really started getting things in check in terms of like pre and post workout nutrition, eating enough and eating regularly, getting my sleep in, getting my water in, that is when things started to click. And once I kind of reversed all of the damage that I'd done to myself, that was really when the fun started, because I had the opportunity to go into a bulk if I wanted to, or go into a cut if I wanted to. Like it's amazing how resilient the body is, you know, once we kind of get things situated and back online. So that was kind of my experience with things.
And I think that's the big thing. I like the verbiage of like, your body is super resilient once we get it to a good position. And then you can play around and have this freedom and go into a fat loss phase or build muscle and all these things. But you need to heal it first and get it to a good position first. And we're all trying to push on an empty gas tank. And that doesn't work. And I think the interesting thing too is like with maintenance, like I still track at least a few days a week, no matter what. And like for me going through like pregnancy, like I was definitely under eating at the beginning, like just wasn't feeling super great. Now I'm finding it super hard to get calories in because this baby is like squishing everything up. So like my stomach just like doesn't have the space, and like digestion is slow and it's challenging. And I have been working out, but like I have been noticing like my muscle mass, particularly in my upper body, is starting to go down. Like I can see it and I'm like, no, like, no. And like, so I've been like tracking more consistently again because I'm like, I need to make sure I'm eating enough for myself, which beforehand, everyone, was 2,200 calories. And now with a baby, I need to eat a lot more than that. So it's making sure I'm eating enough food, getting enough protein. I'm still working out, but I'm also like taking a ton of recovery. The thing that I prioritize the most is my sleep, 100%, because then I know like my hormones are going to be off. I run the risk of like losing more muscle mass, which is the last thing that I need. So I'm working to like, again, make sure I'm getting up to my maintenance because naturally like the hunger cues that I'm experiencing now is to eat less, even though I know that I need more. So it's learning that difference and understanding what your body needs so you can actually fuel it properly because like, I'm like, okay, realistically, like, let's say I don't lose any more muscle. I'm not happy with the way things look, especially my upper body. I'm like, I used to have nice big arms and now I'm just like, I feel like I have the spaghetti noodles I had in high school again. And I'm just like, dang it, I worked so hard for so many years. So it's like, okay, I'm already like thinking, I can't rush into this. Like after baby comes, I need to make sure I'm still recovering. And let's face it, I know my sleep is going to be pretty crappy for quite some time. So I need to prioritize that, make sure I'm eating enough food, and then like start working out consistently, follow a program, probably 2 days a week to start, then get up to 3. But like, I know that this is going to be a long process and I need to prioritize my recovery. I need to prioritize my workouts. I need to prioritize like eating enough food because if I don't, nothing's going to change. And I don't want to put in effort and not get results. And I realize I'm probably going to have to go into like a caloric surplus to try and put on more muscle to buffer the stress that I'm experiencing from like the lack of sleep and all those things and being a new mom and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, I'm so glad that I've learned all this stuff beforehand because old me would have been like, as soon as baby's out, we're pushing, we're cutting calories, we're going to the gym, we're doing the things. And I know that's literally the worst thing that I could do for my body. So it's understanding what you need versus how you feel. And I think that's a really, really big thing. And like, it's tough because, you know, we want to get back to where we were, or we know what we were capable of doing before. And we have to pump the brakes a bit and look at this logistically, take emotions out of it, which is so hard. But like logistically, like, is what I'm doing going to work? Is this going to get me closer to my goal? What are the necessary steps? All that kind of stuff. And I think that's where there are issues and like why having a coach can be so helpful. Like I'm considering having a coach after baby comes to like keep me in check and almost hold me back a bit because I know myself and I'm going to want to push and I'm going to want to drop into a fat loss phase before I'm ready. And like, I really do believe that this is going to be after baby comes. We're looking at like 6 months at least of like maintenance or surplus before I even look at going into a fat loss phase. And I'm already becoming okay with that. But I'm like, I think I might need someone just to like, you know, hold the reins a little bit because it can be really tough. And I'm sure you've experienced that too, where you like want to do something like quicker than you should, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. You made so many good points there. I really like what you said specifically about kind of not wanting to push and put in all the work, but not get anything in return. Because that's such a good point. Like, I think you're absolutely right. Like, sometimes we need people to give us that push or keep us accountable. And like you said, you do still track at maintenance, and so do I, because if I don't, I will undereat like crazy. I recently moved across the country and we took 4 days to do the move. We drove. And during that time, like I wasn't tracking, food was really inconsistent. I just, I was eating here and there, like nothing was planned. And I lost like a decent amount of weight. And like maybe 3-4 years ago, I'd be happy about that. But now I'm like, oh, that's not what I want to be doing right now. So like now that we're kind of getting settled. I'm like getting back into a routine. I've started tracking again, not really aiming to hit any specific goals, just kind of like tracking to get a baseline. And I realized I was under eating probably by like 400 or 500 calories based on what my calculated maintenance is. So it's really, really important to kind of develop an awareness of like, where am I at now? Where do I need to be? And what do I need to do to get there? Because, like you said, like sometimes we just naturally won't do that. So, yeah.
No, and like even like pre-pregnancy, if I was like at maintenance, I would still track 3 days a week. 3 days a week because it's very easy for things to like slip and snowball. And I'm like you, like I will have a tendency to like undereat, not like a huge amount, but like just enough that it will like definitely impact my physique for sure, especially maintaining muscle mass, which like we work so hard for, we want to keep, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, and like for me, it's the protein. It is very,
Dude.
very easy to undereat protein.
Yep. Protein and carbs for me for some reason. I gravitate towards the fats.
Well, I'm like I'll snack on like, add some cheese or some nuts or things like
Yeah.
that, where it's like, okay, like I need to be more, because the carbs that I choose will be more like fruits and veggies or potato. And even then sometimes I'm like, oh man, like I should have had more potato with my dinner or whatever that looks like. So I think just like understanding like it doesn't have to control you, but like learning what your body needs and then getting to that point. And then you learn how to maintain that. Like a lot of people just get so nervous of like, I don't want to gain it back again. There still has to be some sort of like accountability to maintain those results in some capacity, because like, you get to where you want to be and all of a sudden you're not as consistent with your workout routine, or you're not prioritizing your sleep as much because you're not working towards like a specific goal anymore. So it's very easy to like let go of like things that you worked so hard to like build up, right? And like a little bit here, a little bit there, like that can change things for you, right? So you still need to work on prioritizing your sleep. You still have to work on consistency with exercise and paying attention to your nutrition. Does it have to be as like tight knit and nuanced as a fat loss phase? No, but like to maintain results, there has to still be some accountability and awareness as to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And is that supporting maintaining, or are you leaning towards like just letting it go and then gain the weight back? And I think that can be a tough conversation, because a lot of the time it is like we're on and we're dialed, and then we have to slowly relax things, but we can't just let it go all completely, if that kind of makes sense. So I think that's a big thing for people to understand too. So this has been so good. I hope this was really helpful for people in understanding this kind of stuff. And yeah, any last like parting words, Emma?
No, I don't think so. Just, don't be afraid of maintenance. Like, if anything, you should celebrate the maintenance phase because, really, like we've said countless times, it is the most fun place to be. Like, your body responds well, you feel good, you progress in the gym. I think, everyone should at least try to get up to their maintenance. And, it depends what you want to do from there. But it's a great place to be. So don't be scared to increase your calories.
Yeah, and if you're stable right now in your weight, but you're eating low calorie and you're not sleeping well and you have hormonal symptoms and your energy is crappy and your digestion is crappy, that is not a good maintenance. That's not where we want to be. That's just like where your body currently is at based on like the stimulus it's received and the nutrition and everything up until this point. We want to get you to a good, healthy, body is functioning well maintenance. That's where you want to be. So have a good rest of your day, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.